Hey, what's up? Welcome to DGenEd. That's degenerative education, meaning none of this is financial advice. Just me having fun looking at charts and hanging out. I gotta redraw this. It's in the video that I did on Grok. So I'd recommend check. Oh, there we go. This is why, because I needed to switch over to the log scale. And so yeah, if I switch over to the weekly and get this axis lined up, maybe I need to. Oh, I did it on the year time scale, which is the 12-month candle. So let's get this zoomed in. And so, yeah, this is kind of what I talked about, how there's this trend line that goes back to the highs of 1929, right before the Great Depression, as well as the highs of 2000, right before the dot-com bubble burst. And, that high, while not being at that trend line, was tested again in like 2007, 2008, right before the financial crisis. And Gareth Soloway has been talking about how we're at this level, but it's like maybe he shows this on the weekly time frame or something. But this is, a century ago that we're looking at. We want to look at this with the bigger candles, which means things are going to move slower. It's not going to be, at the line, rejected right away. And so with us having, and this is, it's like kind of frustrating because I feel like he should be talking more about the possibility of this breaking out to the upside, because it's like there's the analogy where if you have a trend line to the downside, I'm just going to draw this. I'll do it over here so my image isn't blocking it. But if you have a trend line to the downside, let's say you're at this trend line, you bounce, and it's, let's say, kind of a big bounce. Then you get back to it, you bounce again. That bounce gets smaller. And it's just like a ball bouncing on a floor. And eventually, what's that going to do? It's not going to be bouncing anymore, and it's going to break. And so that's applicable both to the top side and the downside. And so think about that analogy to the downside. Now reverse it. What do we have? We have a ball that bounces on the floor, comes back to it, bounces again, and then it bounces here. And then, so this is also, think about the time frame of this. It's really like I'm kind of frustrated about it because it's like there's a line there. It's resistance until proven otherwise. And it's like, no, stock price is going higher and it's moving higher until proven otherwise. Not there's a line there that I drew, because here, this is 1929 to 2000. So this is like 70 years. And then this next one goes from 2000 to 2021. So this is like 70 years. This is like 20 years. And then how many years till it comes back? Like 4 years, like less than 4 years. So this is 70 years, 20 years, 4 years. And now we're starting the new year at that level. This is what's happening. This is where we're at. And so it's going to break, but it's not going to break to the downside. It could be breaking to the upside with AI, the technological revolutions, the new administration being very pro-innovation, pro-business, pro-industry, cutting regulations, which means, some regulations are good, environmental stuff, things like that. But some regulations, it's just bureaucracy that holds back progress. And with stuff like that happening now with us up here, we're potentially going to break above this. So in the video on Grok, I kind of talk about this and pitch a question to Grok. And he more or less agrees with me, but it could also be just because of how thorough my question was to him. But, this analogy is something that Gareth uses, and for him to not recognize that these tests are getting closer and closer and the pullbacks between them are getting smaller and smaller, we're setting up to break higher. So I feel like this could be hitting 7,200 in 2025. And I don't really know why I'm going on about this because I thought I was talking about Tesla. But yeah, I mean, I just think that I don't think this trend line is bearish. I think that here in 2021, when we got up to it, I think that was not necessarily, I think it was a shorter term bearish signal. And then what happened in 2022? Red candle there for the year. That was a bear market year. But then following that, 2023 has been up, 2024 has been up, and I think that we're going to continue that pattern. Or, it's possible, though it could be flat. I was just thinking, how many times do we see green, 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 and then red? This is lots of green, big red pullback, green, green, red. So I don't know. But I think that I think that we're looking forward to a very bullish 2025, but just like following 2021, I think that we could be seeing a pullback in the market, but I think that it could possibly be at that point a little bit more notable of a pullback, like possibly getting into Great Depression or recession mode. I think that we, have avoided that so far. So, I mean, I just think that you've got to be crazy, in my view, to not be recognizing that this is probably going to break to the upside, just like over here, broke to the downside with that ball analogy. So, I mean, hopefully that's helpful. I think it's super interesting. That bouncing ball analogy was pretty interesting. Yeah, Garrett's always talked about it. I think you can see it in a lot of charts that it's kind of like, too, I think it's a psychological aspect of like, let's say I'm a retail trader and I see a level get hit. And it's like, well, I don't know that's support, so I'm going to wait for it to bounce. And then it bounces. And then it comes back to that level. And it's like, yeah, but is it really going to bounce? It might just break through. And then it bounces. And then that retail trader's like, well, it's bounced on that level twice. It's probably going to bounce a third time. But that's when you get into like the 50-50 territory. And so the more bounces that you get, it's just like the more retail's like, well, it's happened before. It's going to happen again. And, retail's the dumb money. And the more it happens, the more likely it is to break. And a lot of times you'll see this. I had actually maybe, I don't want to get sidetracked. I mean, I could inverse the axis. I don't know, invert scale. Yeah, I mean, this is that bouncing ball analogy. So I think it's going to be breaking down. But we'll see. And this is also on the log scale, I should note.